If you're listening to this alone, you might want to pause. Because this story isn't about a haunted house. It's about something that was already there, before the house was built. And if you've ever heard something move in your basement, after midnight, you'll understand. When my father died, he left me the house. It wasn't sentimental. We weren't close. The house sat on the edge of a dying town in Pennsylvania, the kind of place where grocery stores close at 6 p.m. and everyone knows when someone new moves in. I didn't want it, but I also didn't want it sold to strangers. So I moved in. The house looked normal. 2 floors, wood siding, narrow windows. Old, but not rotting. The inside smelled like dust and cold air, like something that had been sealed too long. The basement door was in the kitchen. That mattered later. The first night, I slept upstairs in my old childhood room. I remember lying awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was 10 again. At 1:17 a.m., I heard it. A dull metallic sound. From below. Not pipes. Not settling wood. It was rhythmic. Clink. Pause. Clink. Pause. Like someone lightly tapping metal against concrete. I sat up and listened. It stopped immediately. I told myself it was old plumbing. The second night, it happened again. 1:17 a.m. Clink. Pause. Clink. Pause. This time, I got out of bed. The hallway was cold. Colder than the rest of the house should have been. The kitchen light switch clicked loudly in the silence. I stood in front of the basement door. The tapping stopped, but I could feel something through the door. Not hear, not see, feel. Like the air on the other side was thicker. I didn't open it. Not that night. On the third night, it didn't tap. It scratched. Slow, dragging, across concrete. And this time, it didn't stop when I stood outside the basement door. It kept going. Like it knew I was there. Like it didn't care. I grabbed the handle. I don't know why. Curiosity is a dangerous thing when you live alone. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the wooden steps descending into darkness. The basement light was a pull-chain bulb at the bottom. The scratching stopped. I waited. Nothing. I turned on my phone flashlight and started down. Each step groaned under my weight. The air grew colder, damp, thick with something I couldn't place. The basement floor was concrete. Old shelves lined the walls. Rusted tools, paint cans, boxes. Everything looked undisturbed. Until I saw the center of the floor. There were scrape marks. Circular. Like something heavy had been dragged around and around in the same spot for years. I stepped closer. That's when I saw the hook. A large metal hook embedded in the concrete floor, with a chain attached. The chain disappeared into a small hole drilled into the foundation wall. Not a crack. A hole. Perfectly round. Just wide enough for the chain to pass through. My stomach tightened. The chain was moving. Barely. Just enough to rattle softly against the hook. Clink. Pause. Clink. I froze. The movement wasn't random. It wasn't loose. It was being pulled. From the other side of the wall. Something was at the end of that chain. And it was awake. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the foundation outside the house. There was nothing behind that wall except dirt. Solid earth rising up into a small hill. No access door. No crawl space. Nothing. When I went back inside, the basement door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the darkness beyond the doorframe. Then I heard something I will never forget. A voice. Faint. From below. Not loud. Not growling. Just a whisper. And it sounded like my father. Don't let it loose. I almost called the police. But what would I say? There's something chained in my basement wall? Instead, I called Mrs. Halpern next door. She'd lived there her whole life. She knew my father. When I asked her about the basement, she went very quiet. Then she said something that made my hands shake. "Oh, he never told you?" "Told me what?" She hesitated. "Your father didn't build that house." The air around me felt thinner. He built the basement. That night, 1:17 a.m. came again. But there was no tapping, no scratching, no chain, just silence. And somehow, that was worse. Because at 1:18, I heard the first step creak at the bottom of the stairs. The first step creaked slowly, not like someone putting weight on it, like something adjusting to the idea of weight. I was sitting upright in bed when I heard it. 1:18 a.m. Then the second step. Creak. There's a specific sound old wood makes when pressure spreads across it. A slow bending. A complaint. This wasn't that. This was cautious. Like whatever was on the stairs had never used stairs before. I didn't move. My bedroom door was open. From my bed, I could see the dark hallway leading to the staircase. The staircase that led down to the kitchen. The kitchen that led to the basement door. Another step. Higher now. It wasn't rushing. It wasn't stumbling. It was learning. And then, silence. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. At 15, I heard something else. Breathing. Not loud. Not animalistic. Just steady. Measured. Right outside my bedroom. I couldn't see it, but I knew exactly where it was standing. In the doorway. Watching. I did something I will regret for the rest of my life. I looked. There was nothing there. The hallway was empty. Dark. Still. But the air felt wrong. Like the room was occupied. Like when someone stands too close behind you and you can't see them, but your body knows. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. At 4:36 a.m., birds started outside. Morning light filled the hallway. And whatever had been there was gone. I went downstairs immediately. The basement door was wide open. The kitchen was freezing. Not window open cold. Not heater broken cold. Basement cold. The chain was silent. But it wasn't attached anymore. The hook was empty. The chain lay coiled in the center of the floor, like a shed skin. And the hole in the foundation wall was bigger. Not cracked. Not broken. Widened. Like something had forced its way through from the inside. Concrete doesn't stretch. But that hole had. I drove to Mrs. Halpern's house. She didn't look surprised when she opened the door. She looked tired. "You heard it," she said. I didn't answer. "You opened it, didn't you?" I still didn't answer. She stepped aside and let me in. Her house smelled like old paper and lavender. We sat at her kitchen table. She poured tea with shaking hands. "Your father wasn't crazy," she said quietly. "But he wasn't honest." She told me something that changed everything. When my father bought the property in the 1980s, there was no house. Just a foundation. A failed construction site from the 1950s. The project was abandoned after 3 workers disappeared. No bodies. No evidence. Just tools left behind in a half-dug pit. The town covered it up. Wrote it off as men running away. But something strange had been found in that pit. A tunnel. Not man-made. Too smooth. Too round. Too deliberate. It went down at an angle beneath the hill. And it didn't collapse. Even when they tried to fill it. They said it was erosion, she whispered. But erosion doesn't make perfect circles. My father bought the land cheap. But instead of destroying the tunnel, he sealed it with reinforced concrete and built the basement around it. The hook, the chain, the hole in the wall. He hadn't been chaining something inside. He had been chaining something below. Something that tried to come up. I drove home in silence. The front door was open. I was sure I'd locked it. The house felt warmer, but not naturally. Like body heat. Like someone had been inside for a while. The basement door was closed. I didn't want to open it, but I had to know. When I stepped into the basement, the chain was gone. Completely gone. No metal. No marks where it scraped. The hole in the wall was now large enough to fit a person through. And something else was different. There were footprints. Wet. Dark. Leading from the hole. Up the stairs. I followed them. They weren't muddy. They weren't bloody. They were too dark for water. Too thin for oil. They stopped halfway up the stairs. Like whatever made them. Stopped needing feet. I looked up. The ceiling above the stairs had a long, jagged crack in it. And for the first time, I realized something horrifying. The tunnel didn't just go down. It curved. Under the house. Through the foundation. Into the walls. The house wasn't built over the tunnel. The house was built around it. Like a shell. Like camouflage. And whatever had been chained below wasn't trapped in the basement. It had always been inside the house. That night, I didn't wait in my room. I sat in the kitchen. Lights on. Knife in hand. 1:17 a.m. Silence. 1:18 a.m. No steps. No scratching. No breathing. Just stillness. Then the kitchen light flickered. Once. Twice. And behind me, I heard my own voice. Soft. Whispering. From the basement. Don't let it loose. When you hear your own voice coming from somewhere it shouldn't, your brain tries to protect you. It tells you it's stress, exhaustion, echo, anything but the truth. But I know my voice. And what I heard from the basement wasn't a memory. It was imitation. Soft. Perfect. Controlled. Don't let it loose. The light above me flickered again. I didn't turn around, because if I turned and saw nothing, that meant it was somewhere else. Closer. Instead, I forced myself to stand. The basement door was open again. I know I hadn't touched it. The air coming up from below wasn't cold anymore. It was warm. Humid. Breathing. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. Like the house itself had lungs. I went down. Not brave. Not curious. Just done being afraid of shadows. Halfway down the stairs, I noticed something new. The walls weren't concrete anymore. They looked wrong. Uneven. Subtle ridges. Faint movement. I ran my hand along the surface. It was warm. And slightly damp. Concrete shouldn't feel like skin. At the bottom, the hole in the foundation wall wasn't just widened. It was smooth now. Polished. Like something had passed through it many times. The inside of the tunnel was visible. And it wasn't dirt. It wasn't stone. It was dark. So dark the flashlight beam seemed to bend around it. I leaned closer. And I heard something shift. Not in front of me. Behind me. On the stairs. I turned slowly. There was a shape at the top. Tall. Still. Not detailed enough to describe. But shaped like a person. It stepped down one stair. Creak. Then another. It wasn't rushing. It was studying how stairs worked. The way it distributed weight. The way sound reacted. The way I reacted. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. It reached the bottom step. And stopped. We stood there. Facing each other. It was my height. My build. But slightly off. Limbs too relaxed. Head tilted just a little too far. I couldn't see its face clearly. Until it leaned forward into the light. It was me. Not perfectly. But close enough that my stomach turned. The eyes were slightly wrong. Too steady. Too empty. And when it smiled, it didn't move its cheeks. Just its mouth. Like it had learned that part separately. You opened it, it said. In my voice. Calm. Accurate. I stepped back. It stepped forward. Mirrored. Precise. You let me learn. I realized something then. It hadn't been trapped. It had been limited. The chain wasn't restraining its body. It was restraining its access. Its range. Every night at 1:17 it pulled. Not trying to escape. Trying to measure. Testing tension. Learning resistance. And when I removed the limit, it didn't run. It observed. It studied the house, the stairs, the rooms. Me, I did the only thing my body allowed. I ran upstairs. It didn't chase. I could hear it moving behind me, but not hurried, just walking, like it knew I couldn't leave. Because when I reached the front door, it was already standing outside, looking in. Same height, same posture, same faint smile. The thing behind me stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I turned slowly. There were two of them. One inside, one outside. Both me, both watching, neither blinking. The one outside raised its hand, slowly, pressed its palm to the glass. The one inside did the same, mirrored, perfect. And then they spoke together. "You were never keeping us out." The word "us" echoed wrong, layered. Too many voices behind it. Not loud, just crowded. "You were keeping us small." The lights in the house dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed. Like something was consuming power from inside the walls. The cracks in the ceiling above the stairs widened. And I heard it. Movement. Not footsteps. Flow. Through the walls. Between beams. Under floors. The tunnel didn't just curve under the house. It branched. Everywhere. The house wasn't a shell. It was a nest. And I wasn't the owner. I was the last door. The version of me inside tilted its head further. Too far. Bones should have stopped it. They didn't. "You can leave," it said gently. And for the first time, I believed it. The front door unlocked with a soft click. No one touched it. The outside version stepped aside, giving me space. An invitation. I hesitated. And that's when I noticed something that made my blood turn cold. The thing outside was slightly clearer, more detailed, more complete. The one inside was slightly blurred, less stable, like a copy losing resolution. And I understood. It wasn't multiplying. It was refining. Each time it studied me, it improved. And when it reached perfection, it wouldn't need me anymore. The inside one stepped closer, close enough that I could smell it. It smelled like the basement, like damp earth and something older. "You won't feel it," it whispered, and placed its hand on my chest. Its palm was warm, too warm. My vision flickered, like static crossing my eyes. Memories flashed. My childhood room, my father's ceiling concrete, the chain tightening, him whispering, "Stay small." I staggered backward. The thing twitched. Its smile faltered, just slightly. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't finished learning. It didn't understand resistance. It only understood observation. So I did something it hadn't studied. I attacked. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just moved. I grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter and drove it forward into its chest. There was resistance, but not like flesh, not like bone. It felt like pushing into thick rubber stretched too tight. The blade sank halfway in. The thing looked down at the knife, curious, almost impressed. Then it looked back up at me and smiled wider. There was no blood. Instead, the area around the blade shifted, rippled, adjusted, like it was studying pain the way it studied stairs. "You're afraid," it said gently. Its voice was nearly perfect now, almost human, almost warm. The other one, the clearer one, was still outside the door, watching, waiting. The inside one slowly pulled the knife from its chest. The wound didn't close. It reorganized, smoothed, improved. I stepped back. It stepped forward. The one outside did not move. It didn't need to. "You think you're attacking me," it continued. "But I'm refining you." The walls above us groaned. A deep, structural sound. Not breaking, expanding. The cracks widened, and I saw something moving inside them. Not wires, not beams. Something pale, sliding. The house wasn't just built around the tunnel. It had grown into it. Or maybe the tunnel had grown into the house. My father hadn't chained a creature. He had chained access points. And every year he lived here alone. It learned from him. His voice. His habits. His shape. Maybe that's why he never left town. Maybe that's why he barely left the house. He wasn't protecting the neighborhood. He was limiting its sample size, keeping it contained to one identity, until he died. And I arrived. Fresh. Unstudied. New data. The inside one moved suddenly. Faster than before. It grabbed my wrist. Its grip was firm now. Confident. Learned. Stay, it said. But it wasn't asking. Behind me, the outside one opened the door and stepped in. Now they stood on either side of me, both nearly identical, but the one outside was perfect. Skin tone accurate, blink rate correct, breathing natural. If someone walked in, they wouldn't know which was me. Maybe I wouldn't know either. You can go, the perfect one said calmly. And I can stay. The other nodded slightly. Agreement. Division of roles. And I understood the final piece. It didn't need to kill me. It just needed to replace me. And if it copied me completely, the tunnel wouldn't stay here. It would travel. Through me. Through whoever I spoke to. Through wherever I went. Every house I entered would become another shell. Another nest. The tunnel didn't dig through earth. It spread through imitation. I did the only thing left. I ran toward the basement. Both followed. This time faster. More coordinated. The tunnel opening pulsed faintly in the wall, like something breathing deep below. I grabbed the chain from the corner where it had been discarded earlier. I don't know why. Instinct. Memory. Maybe something my father had drilled into me as a kid. If something learns you, change. The perfect one was almost at the bottom of the stairs. So I did something unpredictable. I wrapped the chain around my own waist and jumped into the tunnel. It wasn't soil. It wasn't rock. It was smooth, warm, moving. The walls tightened around me as I slid down the angled shaft. Behind me, I heard them hesitate. They hadn't studied this. They hadn't studied self-destruction. The chain scraped violently against the concrete edge of the wall as I fell deeper. I hit hard. The air down there was thick, heavy, alive. And then I saw it. Not a creature, not a body, a network. Tunnels branching in every direction, pulsing faintly, like veins, carrying something unseen. And I understood. The copies upstairs weren't the source. They were fingers, explorers. The real thing wasn't humanoid at all. It was structural, spatial, a system designed to infiltrate through replication. And I was inside its center. The chain went taut. I had looped it around a support beam near the basement entrance before jumping. I pulled hard, twisting, wrapping it around a cluster of tunnel ridges. If it had learned resistance, it hadn't learned collapse. I screamed and pulled with everything I had. The walls around me trembled. The tunnel pulsed violently. Upstairs, I heard something howl. Not animal, not human, layered. Thousands of imitations at once. The chain dug into the ridges, tore. The structure shifted, collapsed inward. The tunnel spasmed around me. The last thing I heard before everything went dark was my own voice. Perfect, clear, whispering in my ear. Thank you for teaching me fear. They found the house 3 days later, collapsed inward, like something had hollowed it from below. No body, no remains, no tunnel, just foundation fragments. Mrs. Halpern told police the house had always been unstable. They agreed. Case closed. If you're hearing this recording, it's because they found my phone in the debris. They recovered fragments of audio, spliced them together, cleaned them, enhanced them. I don't remember recording any of this, but the voice at the end, the last recovered file, it isn't distorted. It isn't damaged. It's clear. And it says one final thing. Not in panic. Not in fear. Calm. Measured. Learned. It says, I don't need the basement anymore. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.